Shalom Mishpacha. This is a lecture that will cause some of you at least to think of your purpose on this planet and the reasons that you are here, alongside the methods and the workings of your life. And the reason I say that is because the workings of God are reflected in man, and not always. And when I say man, in those men that actually carry out the laws, statutes and judgments of God, those are the men that reflect the workings of God. Other people, other men, women, they do not reflect the workings of God. They just reflect a robotic lifestyle, a unconscious lifestyle in which they just ebb and flow with their own personal issues. What is the purpose of God creating man or woman in this matter? When I say man, I mean both. So what is the purpose of God doing that? That is the highest expression of God's love. The highest expression of God's love is to create mankind, male, female, and then the animals as well, the planets and everything else. That is the highest expression of God's love showing forth in our dimension. And then what God does, on top of that, God will and does bless the man and woman with his expression of love. And the blessings come in the form of great health, wealth, substantial material blessings, physical blessings, spiritual blessings, and on top of that, God used His law, which we call the Torah, the instructions of God. The instructions of God are given to man to lead a healthy and happy life. Now, the whole system that God has established, it has a meaning and a purpose. When we do not follow the meaning and the purpose, we live very unfulfilled and unhappy lives. And 9 times out of 10, in fact I'll say 10 times out of 10, we blame our surroundings, we blame the people around us, and we're always pointing fingers at other people for our misfortune. We never look at ourselves, we never look at our expression of life, and we never care of what we are doing that is causing these misfortunes to attend to us. So therefore it is very interesting that a lot of people today that go to churches, perhaps some of them do, perhaps some of them don't, a lot of people who study or are students of the Torah, perhaps they do, perhaps they don't. How do they understand the expression of humanity? How do they understand their expression? How do we express our expression to surroundings around us? In other words, just as God expressed His expression by, His God's love is demonstrated in the creation narrative, where God created man, animals, planets, universes, galaxies, and then God blessed that man and woman with tremendous blessings. And if they followed God, if they followed the statutes and the laws and the judgments, then God blessed them tremendously in their lives. Sure, they get difficulties in life, but God dealt and took care of those difficulties. And that is the expression of God. But what is the expression of man? As a teacher, I have taught students for the last at least 25 years of my life, and have produced some excellent students and some not so excellent students. Now, what was the difference in the excellent students and the not so excellent students? Two people, two men or two women perhaps, That's just like I said, when I say men, I mean women as well. If you take two persons and they start at the same time, same place, same method, same methodology. As you may have heard that two students go to a university and they come out with degrees, and one student excels and the second student does not excel. Maybe he finds a job, employment, or maybe he's unemployed for a while, then he finds employment. But the second student, he not only excels in business, but he makes businesses, and he ends up being the owner of company or companies. Why is that? The reasons are not always easy to explain, but one reason that I can pose it for the two, one being very successful and one being mediocre and not being successful, was they both had the same degree, same piece of paper, same education, same amount of money, and everything is the same. So why is one person better than the other? And there are a number of reasons. One reason could be how the two people think and how they act. Remember what I said earlier, the majority of the population is robotic. They are walking like robots. They focus on one thing or another. Like, for instance, if you focus on the news all the time, all you're going to get is negative headlines. If you read the paper every day, when I used to live in London and go to work in the city, I used to see that people are reading paper in the train every day, the Daily Mail, Daily Express, Daily Sun. They'll read their papers and then they'll just leave them in the train or take them with them. And they would read a paper from beginning to end, all the way in the journey till they got off the journey, and then they go their merry way. So what does that do to you? What does news that you read, these papers, the tabloids in England, and probably the same in America and other European countries, these tabloids, all they do is paint a picture of basically gossip, negativity, and hardly a positive would be in the papers. Maybe there would be one positive headlines, and 99% of the other headlines are negative. So what are you absorbing? So when you're absorbing negativity, negative headlines every day of your life, now that doesn't have to be through a tabloid, a paper, it could be through internet news as well. The same applies to today, internet news. You could be looking at internet news, or you could be looking at CNN, maybe Fox News, whatever is your favorite news channel. It doesn't matter which. NBC, whatever news channel that you listen to, CNBC, etc. So those actually heavily influence how we act. It's not how we think. Of course, they modify your thinking. They do affect and modify your thinking when you're doing that all the time. But they also lead to how you act. What kind of person do you become? Do you become a positive person? Do you become a negative person? Do you become a neutral person? Do you become one side of the party or another side of the party? I mean, are you a conservative? Are you a liberal Democrat? Are you Labour? Are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? Are you with the Peace Party? See, all of those things determined by what you do every day. So the two people who succeed, as an example, and you can read up the biographies of people who succeeded in their life and had the same kind of degrees but had different results, you will find that the motivation factor will be different in the two people. The motivation factor, in the giving factor, in how they give, how they see the world around themselves. And you will also find 9 times out of 10 that the billionaires in the earth, in our earth today, they will always be building hospitals, schools, other institutions, charitable institutions, or they might be giving into a charitable institution and they are doing the building. They will always be expressing their love through money or material wealth. So, what kind of model did God give us? God gave us a model in the Torah where God told us, our people, God set a beautiful model if you follow it. He said, I'm going to give you land. He promised this land to Abraham, our father. He then said, I'm going to give you a piece of land, a country. You're all going to be landowners. In other words, God didn't say, hey, you have to work as a labor in somebody else's factory, somebody else's land. You have to grow and become a servant there. No, he didn't say that. He said, I'm going to make you landowners. So when God was going to make our people landowners, what do they become? They become business owners. They are a step up. You didn't have to go to university to get a degree. Our model was very simple, that all our people were able to study Torah. That means they had to learn to read and write. It was a basic requirement. They learned the language, they learned to read and write. Basic requirement. And then they became landowners. When they became landowners, they became employers. Now they could employ people to plow their land, water their crops, even harvest it. So God automatically made our people business people. Remember, in those days, there was no internet, there was no tabloids, so the only news they'll be able to receive, if negative, would be around themselves. What that family did, what the Joneses did, and what the Davids did, and what the Benjamins did. That's the only news that would be in the community. So it was a people based on agriculture, and from agriculture, then of course, it doesn't stop at agriculture. From agriculture, you go on to other businesses. Our people were in pottery, our people were grain owners, grain sellers, grain keepers. There were people who were very, very rich in Jerusalem in ancient times, who were the owners of vast amounts of grain, be it corn, be it wheat, be it barley, be it something else. And then they had other businesses that were spun off from being landowners. So landowners was just a means to an end. But what did God want our people? He wanted our people to express their love through the act of tithing and sadaqah, and so that they would express their love to other people. So he set a priesthood in place for instruction. So when they're not sure of something, they could go to the priesthood and they could get instructions. There were always priests available. Even in the diaspora, even when our people were in places like Baghdad, in Babylon, and in Iran, when they were in Iran, they had the priesthood members were there. They were able to take instructions even there. They were not without Torah instructions. If they didn't know, they would always ask and get a better answer. So, their expression of love, how does that help them? How does giving the tithe and the sadaqah help you versus not giving it? Well, we can look at that example as well. It's very simple. Let me read something to you from Psalm 8. What is man that you are mindful of him, and the son of man that you visit him? For you have made him a little lower than the powers, or the angels, and have crowned him with glory and respect. You have made him to have dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, yes, and the beasts of the field, the fowl of the air and the fish of the sea, and whatsoever passes to the paths of the seas. So God has placed all these material blessings at the footstep of man. But the man also, just as God expressed his love by creation, and then God gave material blessings to that creation, we also have to express that love through what we know as the mitzvah, the deeds of tithing and sadaqah. And then these material blessings is like circulation of wealth, circulation of money. And you might say, well, how does that work? Well, it's very simple. Let me give you an example. Example is simple. When you have money and you spend that money, you circulate it, let's say you go out to Walmart and you purchased an item. So with your money at Walmart, somebody who's sitting at the cashier will benefit because they'll have money. Walmart will collect the money. Walmart will purchase goods, services that they need to sell on. With that money, they'll also pay their employees. The employee will go out and also spend the money and do what is necessary in his or her life. So therefore, your money doesn't stop at Walmart. Your money goes a long, long, long way before it comes back to you. So there is a circle that it goes through. It's a circulation. So when you have a field, and the crops that you produce are the result of the love of the earth. The love of the earth is to express its love by giving you the crops. It's like a tree. What does a tree do? A tree gives you fruits. It's the expression of the tree. The expression of its love is the fruit that it gives. When you water that tree, you plant, you water it, you give it fertilizer, it then expresses its love by the fruit. It becomes fruitful. What if you didn't do any of that? What if you just had a tree and you never watered it? You never gave it any fertilizer. What would happen to that tree? It will wither away and die. It will have no expression of love. Same with the human beings. We are counted and called as trees in the Bible. When we do not express our love, when we do not want to tithe, do not want to give to the car, all we want to do is a hoard for ourselves, or maybe just being selfish, that we only want to do it for ourselves and nobody else, then what is the expression of our love? There isn't any. And when there's no expression of love, what does that lead to? That leads to ultimately the person, like a tree, withering away and dying. When he gives, it's like he's watering the tree. When he's giving, it's like he's being fruitful. And so, what would be the expression of his giving? The expression of his giving would be, in return, he will be a fruitful tree. So a man or a woman can become a fruitful tree by just giving, because it will circulate. Money is energy. The energy will circulate, and the energy will come around. But not only that, but there will be many other facets of the man or woman's life that will be tremendously beneficial to them. Happiness, good family life, protection, all these things were guaranteed by God for the man or woman who were faithful. They were not guaranteed for unfaithful people, but they were guaranteed for faithful people. So therefore, that is the expression of love. So, in order to understand the model of tithings and zadaqah, and why we keep the festivals and why we do the Sabbath, it's all to do with the expression of love of God versus the expression of love of man. When we get the expression of love right, that is when we have put ourselves in full circle, and everything else in our life will revolve in a rightful way with the correct conclusions. And those conclusions are verified by many students of mine who have followed that rule and law, have benefited tremendously by following the methodology, and in result they have received substantially the material and the spiritual blessings. The students that left me were usually those who were the least astute in keeping the commandments and observing the laws and the statutes. They just treated them like a game. They didn't treat them right. They had no expression of love. One minute they're here, next minute they're somewhere else. So those are the students that did not succeed. But the students that succeeded are those that kept within the conformity of the laws of God, because of the laws of God are there. They're not something I can negotiate with or you can negotiate with. They're just there. They just affect you. They can affect you in a positive way or they can affect you in a negative way. The effect of the law is determined by your action towards it. And whatever your action towards it, if your action towards it is right, you will benefit in a positive way. And if your action towards it is negative, you will then be shown in a negative way. That is very simple. Simple mechanical way to understand it. And you can look it up, look around yourself, look around the people, and I was talking about the people that are like robots, unconscious. They're walking around in their everyday of their life, and their outer world, the 3D world that they live in, is demonstrated by their thoughts, by what they ingest. A man is like a sponge. Man and woman are both as sponges, and whatever you absorb from your environment, that is what you will produce. When you are content, if let's say today you told yourself, I'm content with Torah, I don't need to go look elsewhere for other answers. Every answer I need is here. I'm content, I am blessed, and I'm going to remain blessed, and I'm going to do what is required of me in the Torah and continue to be blessed. If you said that and you made an oath with God and said, you know what, I'm very happy where I am, I'm very thankful, and I'm very grateful that I have a house to live, perhaps family, job or business, and I'm happy, and I'm going to continue thereon. I'm not going to waver left and right. I'm not going to go check the next religion out, see what they're doing, see if there's benefit in that. No, I'm just going to stay where I'm happy with that. And I'm going to continue to do the statutes and the judgments as commanded. If you had that attitude, you will come out top. You will come out top of everybody else. You will come out blessed. You will come out spiritually enriched. You will have a enriched life, and you will have absolutely no qualms about your life, because you have a steadfast attitude towards God, His laws, and you let things fall where they may, and you continue to allow God to bless you. You're not restricting God of where God can bless you. You're allowing God to bless you in every way possible. You said that I'm going to allow God to bless me in every way possible. I'm just going to be diligent and just do my part. And you continue to do that, and you continue to express your love, your gratitude to God with your expressions, and God continues to bless you in return. That is the way that you can become a solid man or woman. The other way is of those men or women who are 1 minute here, the next minute they're on another tree, and then they're somewhere else, and then they're from there they're gone somewhere else also. In other words, they do not stay at one place. 1 minute they're in one church, next minute they're with another denomination, then they move on to something else, and their life is a reflection of, their life is a total reflection of their thought processes. Because when they ingest things from outside and they act on those things, then they receive negativity and negative results as a result of what they're ingesting and how they're behaving thus on. If your actions were that you changed about 10 churches, and I'm not saying everybody does that, I'm saying that some people may change their denomination two times a year, maybe 3 times a year. But if they do that, then that just shows you that that's the person that is unstable. A double-minded person is unstable. Why? Because they don't have their mind on one thing. They are not satisfied with it, and they continue to change, and they continue to look, but they do not find better. They in fact continue to go down one step. When you do that, all you do is you go down one step down, one step down, one step down, until you're on the floor. And then you realize, oh, I think I did something wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I was okay where I was last time. It's like a woman who gets divorced from a husband, thinking to herself, then the next husband that comes along will be better than the previous one. But what happens, the problem is not with the husband. The problem is with the woman, the way she thinks. And so what she does, she divorces her husband, she goes on to the next one, and the next husband turns out even worse than the first husband. And then she says to herself, oh, I should go back to my old husband. But now, look at where she got herself. In other words, her thoughts which were forming her world, because you're in a matrix. If you're in a matrix, your thoughts are forming the world that you see. And so it's the same person, same woman, different husband, but the woman is the same. The thoughts are the same. The thoughts have not changed. Therefore, how can she get a better husband? She will not. In fact, she could have fixed her previous husband. Same with a man, having, divorcing one woman and finding another woman. He could have been happier with the first wife had he made the effort to change his internal, not the external. If he had looked in the mirror and changed himself internally, then the external environment will be correct as well. So the wife that seemed to be bad to him would turn out to be a better wife if he had changed his internal. The problem with that man is thinking the grass is greener on the other side, so he divorces one to get another, only to find that he's now in a worse relationship than before. Now he wants to go back to the first wife. This is why you see in our world today that men who usually divorce their wives and go to get a second wife, then what happens? They usually secretly start seeing their first wife without the second one knowing, and then they end up destroying that relationship or the second wife as well. It's very clear. These things happen in our world. So why? Because as I said before, most people are walking unconsciously as robots. Consciousness does not mean that, oh, you change one religion to another. God has set his system in place. You can accept it, you can reject it. It's okay. God is not saying that God wants everybody by force to enter his jurisdiction. God is allowing you to make that choice. And if you can see, if you observe from afar off, and you observe God's law, and you observe other things around you, you can clearly see where people are benefiting. And if you decide to stay and benefit, then you should just make the commitment to stay. Never leave. Your motto should be, this is it, this is my home. I'm never leaving. I'm going to make it better and better for myself. Just as in a house, you enter a house, it needs paint, it needs a little repair work done. You repair it, you put a new paintwork up, and you live in that home. And you continue to live it, and you love it, and you live in it. And you continue to make it better. You don't say, I've lived in it 6 months, now I want to go another home. Then another 6 months, then I want to go find another home. You don't do that. Same way, it's not about hopping religions. You stay where you are, you're comfortable, you're happy, allow God to bless you where you are. That's as simple as that. If you can do that, if you can follow, the statutes and the commandments are not difficult. They're easy. You just got to have the mindset to say, yes sir, I will do them to the best of my ability, and I will allow God to bless me in His time. And you continue to reap the blessing. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror of the person you are. Look at the reflection. The reflection in the mirror will be the person of the thoughts and the actions, and the results of those actions will be your 3D. In order for you to become a rich person, a rich man, stick with God. God will make you rich. Stick with God, and God will benefit and bless you tremendously. You will get all your desires. But make yourself a centered man, a centered woman that is with God, stays with God, and continues to be blessed and nurtured by God. That is God's highest expression is love. Then man's highest expression is love back to the same God. The same way that God has expressed His love to us, we must express our love back. That is a simple lesson to the expression of God's love. With that, I will leave you to munch on these words, think about it, think of where your lives are and where they need to be in order to be the successful men and women that you want to be in your society. Thank you for listening, and I give you a shalom, shalom.